So good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday night Anamkara meditation program. And with all my heart and with all my love, I welcome you to our program tonight, to this satsang that we have each Thursday. And, satsang is, as we were talking last week, Sangha is a refuge. And boy, do we need a safe refuge now. So to be able to gather together in this context and invoke the highest in ourselves and in the world, so we can take refuge in that and then gain the strength, the steadiness, the power to walk that into the world and to help transform a world in desperate need of transformation. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for bringing the power of your practices, the power of your intention, the power really of your divine presence. You are the self. And so joining here tonight, you're bringing all that with you for the benefit of all. So thank you. In a few moments, we're going to be chanting the opening mantras. And as you know, the mantras are a way of both invoking what our highest nature is and also helping the mind. Helping the mind. The poor mind is in such need of comfort and ease and steadiness and a place to truly find rest. And so mantra and the practices of mantra have been used for thousands of years to be that safe harbor, that refuge for the mind, and also to bring the mind right into that living presence of the divine within ourselves and within the world, no matter how hidden it might seem in either place. So we start with the opening mantras as an invocation, and it starts with what are known as the Ganesh Mantras. Ganesh is the remover of obstacles. It's that aspect of the infinite that can cut through and ease the way forward, remove obstacles. And then the second set of mantras is a direct invocation of our highest nature as the infinite, all-encompassing. That it's the infinite that is transcendent, it's the infinite that is immanent. From the infinite comes the infinite, and the infinite remains. And so it brings us right to the heart of what our true nature is. So we're going to start with those opening mantras now. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jai Gajananam Bhuta Ganari Sevitam Kapita Jumbo Palacharu Bhakshanam Umasutam Shokam Vinashakarakam Namami Vigneshwara Parapankajam Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamandaya Purnameva Vashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jai. So once again, with all my heart, with all my love, I welcome you to tonight's program. So here we are, beginning a new year, and of course it's traditional to wish everyone a happy new year. Yet at this time, there's so much going on in the world that is then having an impact on the mind, and so we need to address those tendencies of the mind. And because, in the yogic and Buddhist traditions, when we talk about joy and happiness, they're really seen and can be experienced directly as uncaused, that it's one of the irreducible qualities of the experience of consciousness, of the expansiveness of being that is the divine within. So yogis and saints and sages and Buddhas have gone inside to contact that, to know that, and bring that into the world, to be empowered by that, to have a buoyancy that is not about what external conditions are, but by resting in the truth of who we are. And so the practices are really about that and coming home to that. And so tonight is the first Thursday of the month, and so we focus on Dharma as a Dharma talk. But Dharma is practice. Dharma is right understanding. Dharma is a way of helping to cultivate the strengths that the mind can then be supported by for bringing the truth of who and what we are into the world, as well as the ability for the mind to step back and quiet down. And not just be quiet when it's convenient, not just be quiet when everything is stable and good, but to be quiet under duress, to be quiet under any circumstances. That we have the capacity to do that so that we can then be in touch directly with the wisdom, the love, the compassion, the power to be able to see clearly and act clearly in the world. So practices are about empowering us to bring all of that into the world, not to simply retreat and escape the world, but to be able to see both the unfolding of the divine and our place in it, that how we bring our increasing wisdom, power, strength, joy, love into the world. And I was interested to see that somebody had sent me a beautiful quote, and it's from the ancient text of the Talmud. And it really struck me as appropriate for this evening, for Dharma. Because in the Talmud it says, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it." Isn't that exquisite? We do that now. We bring that in now. That's what we started last week's program. Now. Be present now. It's in this present moment that we bring those boundless qualities of love, of compassion, of presence, of strength, of wisdom. Now. And that's what we're called upon to do. To do that, experience that, walk it into the world. And so these kinds of tumultuous times, they're not certainly new to humanity. All the way back, almost 3,000 years ago, we can read in the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, and Lao Tzu says, he's talking about the Tao. The great way is easy, yet people prefer the side paths. Be aware when things are out of balance. Stay centered within the Tao. So especially in times when things are shaky and the world and the influences, the forces, the leaders are shaky in their sense of Dharma and being able to uphold that, all the more important for us to be centered in our Dharma, in our practice, to have steady wisdom, and then support others who are doing that also and bringing it into the halls of power or politics or wherever it needs to be. And so Lao Tzu writes, when rich speculators prosper, while farmers lose their land, when government officials spend money on weapons instead of cures, when the upper class is extravagant and irresponsible, while the poor have nowhere to turn, all this is robbery and chaos. It is not in keeping with the Tao. The Tao, Dharma. The Tao is Dharma, the natural course of being in harmony, being aligned with the highest, aligned with the truth. And that's what we keep coming back to. Lao Tzu wrote, as it acts in the world, the Tao is like the bending of a bow. The top is bent downward, the bottom is bent up. It adjusts excess and deficiency so that there is perfect balance. It takes from what is too much and gives to what isn't enough. Those who try to control, who use force to protect their power, go against the direction of the Tao. They take from those who don't have enough and give to those who have far too much. And the master, however, can keep giving because there is no end to her wealth. She acts without expectation, succeeds without taking credit, and doesn't think that she is better than anyone else. The way of Dharma. We have to understand that and understand what we need to be looking for leaders. That kind of humility, that kind of presence, that willingness to serve. To serve. These are two of the great human purposes for a birth. To know and to serve. To know the infinite as ourself. To know the divine in the moment. And to serve that by serving all. We need leaders informed by that kind of wisdom and knowledge and have the strength to walk that into the world. So Dharma and the practices are absolutely essential for giving us the strength and the clarity to be present, to walk through these tumultuous times that have been a part of human history forever. We're improving. Our systems are getting better, but they also always have to be safeguarded. The Dharma always has to be uplifted. We have to stand for Dharma. That's that great ancient symbol of the cow of Dharma in this age, the poor mother who gives freely of her nurturing milk, standing on one leg. So we have to be the other legs of Dharma. We stand firm in Dharma. We walk that into the world. We nurture others as well as ourselves through being dharmic. And for that reason, Mahatma Gandhi, when he was taking on the terrible oppression that existed under the power of the British Empire, and how horrible they were treating people in India. And he stuck to Dharma in a peaceful way. And quoting the ancient Bhagavad Gita, he said, where there's Dharma, there is victory. Where there's Dharma, there's victory. We stay with Dharma. It can take time, took him time, took tremendous sacrifice. But people following the Dharma wound up creating the revolution that set India free. And from the Bhagavad Gita, it was Lord Krishna who was the embodiment, the incarnation of Dharma. And that's why in the Mahabharata, the great epic poem from the Indian tradition, the greatest and longest epic poem in human literature, is all about the play of Dharma and Adharma. Adharma is the absence of Dharma. And when the Pandavas, the kings, had to choose sides and choose people who were going to fight on their behalf, they chose Lord Krishna, though he had a smaller army, but they knew he was the embodiment of Dharma. We're this Dharma, this victory. That was the same theme that was in the Ramayana, and Lord Ram, another avatar. Avatars are these great beings that come in as an incarnation to help reestablish Dharma. And so in the Eastern traditions, Buddha was seen as that kind of avatar, helping to establish Dharma and a way of living dharmically in the world. Ram, Krishna, also avatars. Jesus is viewed as an avatar in that way, that he came in to transform and stand for Dharma, the way of truth and love. So that's what we're called on to do. In fact, there's an understanding that the next avatar, Maitreya, may not be an individual. Maitri means love. That the real avatar is going to be the community of love, of people who have the strength to live love, compassion, empowered. We still don't tolerate abuse and exploitation and violence. We become warriors of Dharma in a peaceful way, but in a potent way, an empowered way, of refusing to be run over by people acting out of a-dharma. And it reminds me also, Guru Nanak, who is the founder of the Sikh tradition, that was part of his path, was, his people were being oppressed back in the 15th, 16th century. And ahimsa, nonviolence, had people reticent to stand with strength. Guru Nanak stood with strength and really established a sense that, the spiritual path is also about being strong and supporting others in good fellowship and seeing all with total equality, having equal vision, so that you don't oppress others. They're all the divine. We're in this all together. How do we uplift and support everyone? So that's also how we bring Dharma into the world. We cultivate equal vision. We cultivate that. It may not have been how our conditioned mind was brought up. It may not have been how our cultural influences trained our mind. We may see all kinds of differences in people higher and lower, that we have to get rid of that conditioning, whether it's in the form of racism or bias or prejudice. These are also things that are adharmic, and that as individuals we take on that practice of self-inquiry to clear ourselves of that, so that again we can be a vehicle for bringing love, compassion, strength, power to our actions in service of the highest, in service of Dharma, in service of a living presence that is each and every one of us in all of creation. In fact, Guru Nanak said, the highest religion is to rise to universal brotherhood, to consider all creatures your equals. And this too is what we're confronting now, is how that deluded sense that we've had for so long, humanity, I'm talking about, that we can just exploit the earth and all her creatures without any consequence. Well, that delusion has caught up with us. So we really have to begin looking at the value of all creatures, all of creation, all the plants, all the insects, all the things. Now there's a crisis because something as little as bees. It turns out our whole food chain is dependent on them. We have to have this kind of awareness. There's no spirituality without ecology anymore. There used to be, you could, go meditate, sit in a cave, and you're going to get enlightened and not have to deal with the world. Not now. That's not what we're called on. The path now includes the embrace of all, and including the embrace of all that needs to be transformed. That we have that power. The power of transformation and revelation is your very nature. In the Eastern yogic tradition, that power of transformation and revelation is known as Kundalini Shakti. Shakti is a pure power of consciousness, the infinite that takes all forms. Kundalini, its presence within each and every one of us. So in part, that's what we're also helping through Dharma and practices, awaken that power. So it's not just the poor mind going, oh, how am I going to take on this? It's so overwhelming. I'm beleaguered. I'm tired. No, you have this reservoir. You have this divine, infinite reservoir of power, of strength, of inspiration to call on. So when the mind is getting beleaguered, we need to train it to go within, to go past itself, to come to rest in the infinite, the divine. That's what then empowers it to move forward into the world, to help transform, to care for others and bring that loving compassion into the world. Again, Guru Nanak said, the whole world is in distress. And remember, he was talking 500 years ago. The whole world is in distress. And he said, he who believes in the name becomes victorious. The name, that's mantra. The name is mantra. Mantra, the throb of the infinite, the living presence that is at a level that's accessible to the mind. So much of the time when the mind thinks of the divine, it's like, it doesn't know where to look. Should it look down, up, inside, outside? Where is this thing? Look to the name. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Kalima. Oh, that's something the mind can readily take hold of any time, any place. Take refuge in the name, and you're taking refuge in the divine itself. So Guru Nanak said, build the raft of meditation and self-discipline to carry you across the river. There will be no ocean and no rising tides to stop you. Build the raft of meditation and self-discipline. It's Dharma. It's following the Dharma. It's doing the practices. That's what empowers us. Because with the mind, and we know this from even neurophysiology, my background in my professional life is in working with EEGs and neurofeedback and what goes on with the mind psychologically. And we know from just the rudimentary tenets of neurophysiology that, anything that we do repeatedly is a practice to the mind and the brain. Anything. Not just the ones we intended, anything. So we may sit for meditation and intentionally, do mantra and become absorbed. And that's helping to build the neural circuits, the pathways, that will make it easier to come back to that, easier to invoke that in the mind. But then we get up and we walk around through the day. Now what are we doing? What are we doing repeatedly all day long? That is also now a practice, a rehearsal for the mind and brain, but maybe not one we intended. And that's why that being mindful, intentional throughout the day is what strengthens our practice. Not just here and there, as much and as continuously as we can, coming back to the name, coming back to presence, coming back to the fullness of awareness, training the mind, training our consciousness, training our attention. Where our attention goes, that's where the mind goes. Where our attention rests, that's what the mind becomes. That's why Buddha said 2,500 years ago, as you think, so you become. So let the mind come back to that loving compassion, that kindness for all beings. Become that. Become the embodiment of that. That's what we're called on. And that's what gives us steadiness and strength. That's what builds a mountain of that. The sense of this unshakable presence that develops with steady practice. That is then there no matter what the travails we might experience. I've shared at other times at some of the places where I've experienced that, whether it was, getting stuck in a cave 400 feet underground in the pitch dark and water rising. Mantra was there. Nobody else was there. Mantra was there. What calmed my mind? Mantra. What got me out was the steadiness that mantra gave. Or at other times, being in terrible crises and health crises, what was there? Practices, the strength of practice. Mantra, the living presence of the divine. Shiva invoked, call the name, and the one whose name that is present. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, the auspicious one, the infinite, the boundless one, whose love is boundless, whose embrace is boundless, whose strength is boundless, whose inspiration is boundless. That's why we keep coming back to the practices and Dharma as a refuge. That's what empowers us to deal with these times of turmoil. Deal with it when it's external and political or economic or viruses, or in our own life when things aren't going right and we're struggling to fulfill our goals or reach for what we've been working towards. It's the practices that give us the steadiness, so that we see that who we are is essentially that infinite, boundless one. And what is being done by the mind, we now have the ability to step back and watch. And let that light of consciousness, that light of love that is emanating from our own self, and help to illuminate and buoy the mind. The mind gets caught in its own darkness. And yet, right there is this boundless light. It symbolizes the Sahasrara. The Sahasrara, the topmost center in the system of chakras, not really a chakra. But it's seen as the 1,000-petal lotus, radiant with 1,000 suns. It's a beautiful way of saying we walk around under an umbrella of light. We walk around under an umbrella of the light of grace, the light of the divine. The mind keeps thinking, I'm still like this and that. It gets all caught up and dissociates from that. It's not that this left. The mind just isn't aware of it. So the practices open the doors to that awareness, so we can feel that luminous quality of the divine present in all times, in all places. Then we're empowered to walk that into the world in the face of anything. So we keep coming back to the practices, back to, the steadiness that comes from that graceful presence of our own self, and taking refuge in that, standing in that. And there's a meditation practice that we can do that helps that. So right now, if you'd like, it's best done eyes closed. So this is a guided meditation. So I want you to close your eyes and just let your awareness rest inside. And feel your body straighten up. So if you're sitting up a bit taller, a bit fuller. Taking some deeper breaths. Allowing yourself to sense the whole length of your spine. It's another beautiful image that comes out of the yogic tradition with the infinite above and the infinite below, at the both at the base of the spine and at the top of the spine. And all that we experience is held between those two poles of the infinite. So breathe in and elongate your spine upward, taking some fuller, deeper breaths, inviting the rest of the body to really settle. The muscles are invited to soften and warm and let go. Now bring to mind an image of a beautiful mountain, a great mountain. It might be a mountain you've seen, it might be just one that you've simply imagined, but a mountain that has this grandeur, this presence. It reaches up into the sky and snow covered on top. It extends down to this huge base where there are rivers and trees and settlements. A magnificent mountain. And to meditate on a mountain helps to invoke a shift in our consciousness. The great Taoist poet Li Bai wrote, "I go to the mountain to meditate, just the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains." So as you're looking at that image that you might have in your mind of this beautiful mountain, standing steady in its grandeur and its magnificence, you can allow your consciousness to sort of enter that mountain, to feel that magnificence, the steadiness, the rootedness of a mountain. The roots of the mountain go deep into the earth, even while the summit of the mountain reaches high into the sky. And the mountain is all of that, from the very top to its very roots, the fullness and presence of the mountain. And this is a mountain. It's been there forever. The mountain stands steady. Winds and storms, snows and rains have come and gone, and the mountain remains steady, unmoving, unshaken by any of the storms that come its way. You can feel that magnificent steadiness and presence. And it's that steadiness and presence of the mountain that also nurtures all the life around the mountain. The rains come, the streams flow down, they feed the forests, the fields, the communities. Just the living presence of the mountain creates the conditions for all around it to flourish. Not by doing anything, but simply being a magnificent mountain in all its grandeur, in all its steadiness. Inhale that mountain nature, that steadiness, that rootedness, that presence. Let your awareness expand into the mountain, into its depths. So massive, unmoved by anything that comes its way. You are that mountain, a mountain of Shakti, a mountain of presence. The breath comes in and goes out. And still you feel the steadiness, the rootedness, the grandeur of being a mountain. Supporting all around you without doing a thing. Simply being present in your fullness. So inhale that fullness. Inhale it deeply. And that entire mass of the mountain is really a mass of energy that throbs with energy. And the massive presence of the mountain is a massive presence of energy. You are that massive presence. You are that energy, that boundless energy of consciousness, the living presence of the divine. And a mantra is a throb of your very essence, your very being. The mountain quietly throbs with Om Namah Shivaya, with Om Kali Ma, with Om. You are that full presence. That unshakable presence. The steadiness that holds the whole universe. Throbbing with mantra. The mind itself dissolves into mantra. The mantra Om Namah Shivaya. So we'll chant now. We'll chant the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Nama Om. Om Kalima. Kalindurga. Namo Namaha. A mountain of energy. A mountain of presence. A mountain of grace. That's your nature. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Kalima. Om Kalima. Kalindurga Namo Namah. Kalindurga Namo Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Kalima. Om Kalima. Kalindurga Namo Namah. Kalindurga Namo Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Kalima. Om Kalima. Kalindurga Namo Namah. Kalindurga Namo Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om. Shivaya Namah Om. Om Kali Kali Durga Namo Namah Kali Durga Namo Namah Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namah Om Shivaya Namah Om Kali Om Kali Kali Durga Namo Namah Kali Durga Namo Namah Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namah Om Shivaya Namah Om Kali Om Kali Kali Durga Namo Namah Kali Durga Namo Resting in your boundless nature, your steadiness, living presence that hums with Om Namah Shivaya, with Om Kalima, inviting the mind into the stillness, the silence, the steadiness, boundless presence, boundless love, boundless compassion. A refuge for the mind. Let it rest there. Kalim Durga Namo Namah. Kalim Durga Namo Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Om Kalima. Om Kalima. Kalim Durga Namo Namah. Kalim Durga Namo Namah. So we end with this prayer. And may all our practices truly benefit everyone. And may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. And namaste. The mountain stands steady in its grandeur, rising from the mists of the lowlands, summit shrouded in clouds of unknowing. A hidden path winds its way up from the jungle, lost to all but one in love. Blessed by the Devi, she endured the hardships and followed her inspiration and entered the cave of the heart of the mountain. Her sanctuary found, she shed the coarse garments of the world and surrendered to the quiet ecstasy of utter stillness, deep, deep within her mountain, unaware that at that moment 1,000 birds rose from the mountainside, taking flight in joy. Take refuge in the grandeur, the steadiness, the presence of your true nature. The mind may fluctuate, the mind may be agitated, so it's seeking a refuge, it's seeking a place to come to rest. That refuge, that place of true rest, is the self, the divine within. And meditation is the practice of entering that refuge and coming to rest there. And then the mind, rejuvenated, strengthened, steadied, can come out and move into the world with greater freedom to carry the love, the compassion, the wisdom, the presence of its very source, the divine within, your true nature. So we take refuge in the Sangha, in this gathering. We take refuge in teachings and practices. We take refuge in the source of teachings and practices. All for the benefit of the mind, to help steady the mind and make it the loving servant the skillful servant, the empowered servant, that it has the capabilities of being, and walking that all into the world for the benefit of everyone. So once again, thank you for coming and bringing the power of your practices, the power of your Dharma, the power of your presence to this evening and to the world. To the world. You're bringing that into the world at a time when it's so desperately needed. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being you in all your fullness, in all your presence, in all your grandeur, in all your glory. Know that that steadiness is the very core of who you are. So thank you for coming. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. And namaste.